All right, so I finally caught up with episodes 8, 9, and 10 on Nancy Drew. So, jumping into episode number 8, first of all, I had been watching these on the CW's website because they've posted all of those for free right now with ads. So, every 15 or so minutes, I was watching 3 to 4 ads. And then my computer started glitching, so I was watching 4 more ads every time I had to reload the screen. And then if I had to pause and come back, I was watching 4 more ads. And it got excessive, so I finally bit the bullet. I paid $20 on Amazon streaming, and I downloaded the entire season on my Amazon Prime account. Holy cow, that made a huge difference. So I'm able to actually watch one episode in about 40 minutes as opposed to 80 minutes that it seemed like it was taking me before. So that made this far more enjoyable. So starting out, I love when McGinnis comes in and he's telling the kids, all right, what's going on? They break down. We actually see them acting like teenagers and telling him what happened. So he does this ceremony and sends George in to go get Ace's spirit to bring it back to his body while he's in the coma. So with this, I really liked the acknowledgement of, we've already seen the Eastern magic work when they had to exorcise the demon from George. George is really getting to be a heavy hitter here. But now we're seeing the Native American magic kind of come into play with this ceremony that they're doing at Nancy's house to bring Ace's spirit back to his body. I really thought it was funny when Carson comes home and he's like, what did you do now? And she's like, no, it's an ancient ceremony. We've got room for a fourth. And he just joins in. Like, what else has he got to do? No big deal. So they go in, they do this. I thought it made a lot of sense that George was the one who got pulled in because she's the one who actually has experience with kids. So the viewer didn't know that at the time, but then as it continues on, we see that it's actually Ace trapped in his worst fear. So the night his dad died. So he's 6 years old instead of 18 years old. So I thought that worked out really nicely the way they set that up. Then when Carson and Nancy figure out that their tension is causing problems, I thought it was kind of half-hearted the way they stepped outside to go deal with that. And they're like, we're going to talk about this later. But then they go back and that's good enough. I don't know, maybe just airing things out was good enough there. Then on top of this, I'm not sure that I bought into McGinnis and Ace's relationship right off the bat. I think as these episodes went on, they rounded that out a little bit better. So it made sense. But I hadn't realized that Ace's dad was a cop up until this point. So I don't know if they had said that or maybe I overlooked that. But that made a lot of sense to me. And then when McGinnis was talking about, he was there the night that Ace's dad got into an accident, I had thought Ace's dad died in the accident, but then later in episode 10, we see that he is alive. And then when he gave Ace that little carved bear, that was then like the totem that George brought back with her. So it started to round it out nicely. And I'm realizing that's one of these things that I like about this show. I was hard on it at first. I was not sold right off the bat just because it had Nancy Drew in the title. But I'm realizing that these characters are incredibly well-rounded. So I thought it was weird that they had, made Nancy's mom die recently as opposed to when she was a small child. But then that gave her kind of like a sad side, a dark side. I didn't think it needed a dark side, but now I'm realizing as they play off of that it makes these characters far more believable and their actions more motivated. So I take back my criticism from the beginning. I think it was just a bit of a rough start, but things are going really well now. And even with Bess, I don't care very much about her backstory. I do feel like they've kind of brushed her backstory off a little bit where they're using it more as just, oh yeah, so she's got something to motivate her, but they don't play into it. So she did the DNA test to figure out that she was in fact a Marvin in episodes 9 and 10. But then they just moved right on. She asked when she gets to meet the family and nothing ever came of it. So obviously I'm sure they're going to do a whole episode about that later on, or at least a B-plot with that. But right now, it doesn't seem like it's important. So I don't feel bad for not thinking Bess's storyline is all that important or interesting right now. But I'll lean into it when the show starts too. So I guess I need to just trust it and kind of follow their leads, because even though I wasn't in it at the beginning, it does seem like they know what they're doing. Their pacing is picking up. They're rounding out the characters, and I'm liking what they're doing here. So after they brought Ace back, I thought that they were indicating that McGinnis maybe had killed his dad, or that McGinnis had caused the accident with those boots. I don't know, for some reason it didn't look like the younger police officer that Nancy went to school with. So I was a little startled when it was him, but I guess the way that played out, they made it kind of obvious. So that worked. Then the next episode, episode 9, that was the one where Ted, Georgia's younger sister, is kidnapped. Through this whole thing, I was like, okay, it's Nancy Drew. I know they're not sticking with the books, but surely there's not going to be any dead kids, right? So luckily there weren't. That was interesting with Simon, that whole storyline where it was the first guy that she had like put into jail, and then the woman trying to get him out had taken Ted, but now she banished Simon and isn't sure if he's actually gone or if he's coming back or what that whole deal is. So my hope is that that will come into play later on. The whole thing with Carson, I knew this was going to happen. They're going to bring him back. They're going to try and endear us to him. Oh, look, he's being a good dad now. He showed up and went with Nancy and supported her while she burned down an effigy to a demon. I'm still not going to like Carson. When they picked him up and took him to prison, I didn't feel sad about it. I don't feel bad for him. There was plenty of evidence against him, and I feel like he and Nancy in their chosen career fields or hobby fields have to acknowledge that. Like, they know there's so much evidence, and it's pretty hard to disprove. So Nancy left her journal out in plain sight. That's on her. She knows how things go. She was the one who sent Karen, is her name Karen? Her mom's friend, who's the policewoman that her dad's seeing now. Anyway, sent her into her room. She knew what she was getting herself into there. So anyway, with that, I am starting to see a few more Harry Potter references. Am I grasping at straws here? Because the whole thing with Simon and the guy's scars hurting, and that was how he knew that Simon was coming back. It feels very Harry Potter-esque. So that on top of, I guess Ted wasn't really possessed by the dragon toy, but it did kind of feel, like I said before, Ginny Weasley with Tom Riddle's diary type of a thing, where a young girl is influenced by something that she entrusts. So yeah, I'm kind of following that to see if there's more stuff that we notice with that. I, again, didn't feel bad when Carson was arrested. Now moving into episode 10, they did what was that, like 2 weeks later? Nancy is talking. She hasn't talked to her dad. She's not eating. She feels horrible. Yeah, we get it. It's still your fault. He should still be in jail until they can prove him innocent, because it does look like he did it. That's why you suspected him in the first place. They wouldn't make Nancy an ace a thing, right? Like, there was that whole thing where she didn't trust him and he was trying to prove himself to her. I don't know. I'm getting some tension there. Maybe the same way they're trying to build up the tension between George and Nick. That line that Carson said, where if you suspect everybody around your life, you're going to wind up alone. I think they should lean into that. I think keeping Nancy as kind of a loner with a group of friends as opposed to a romantic interest is going to keep the show moving at a better clip. But maybe I'm seeing things that aren't actually there. Then I was all excited. I was like, oh, look, there's more than 2 tables filled at the Claw. And it was like a whole thing where everybody wanted to see Nancy, and she had her own fan site and all this stuff. So I don't know if I'm counting that as the Claw being full or not. I mean, I feel like I have to, right? But after Nancy's fame wears off, I wonder if we'll still see people there or not. I don't know why I'm so invested in the ownership, management, and income of this fake restaurant, but I can't turn it off. Then, I already said I thought Ace's dad was dead. I liked that relationship there where they're kind of terse with each other. I thought it was really funny once they went to that old school when Ace calls his dad and he was like, Dad, here's the situation. What do I do? His dad just told him and was super chill about the fact that his son was at an abandoned school with a kidnapping victim and trying to, his friends are locked up. And he's just like, oh no, yeah, here's what you do. Go. But then obviously showed up at the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. So, that Photoshop program where they like overlaid the photos to blend together, that seemed extreme to me. It's like Enhance on CSI when they're like, oh, enhance the video. And they like zoom in and enhance to the point where they can see somebody's face that's clearly a blur. That's kind of what this felt like a bit. But it was kind of the crutch of the episode. So I can go with that. Come and Get Me to the Prisoner. That was or the Poisoner. Reading my notes wrong here. The Poisoner. What was her end game there? Like, what did Nancy think that she was going to do? She didn't really have like an ace in her pocket or anything. It kind of seemed like a suicidal move. Like, she feels so guilty for putting her dad in prison that she's calling them out because she's got nothing to lose at this point. I don't know if they were implying that or not. We already talked about Bess. I was writing down all the victims' names. Those didn't seem to have any gravity or anything there, other than I think we were maybe supposed to be able to identify them when they went into the office of the school. Then when Ryan brought surprise Chinese food and Nancy like turns him away, I don't understand how that happened, because I gotta be honest, anybody who brings me surprise Chinese food, yeah, no, they're probably good. They can stay for a little bit and have dinner with me. Hawthorne High, that is the same name, right, as one of the Nancy Drew games. I haven't actually played that one, so I'm going to check that one out. I also am going to look into it because I'm not sure if that's in one of the books. Like, I'm assuming if that's a title that they're bringing back, it's probably not solely from the games, probably a book too. So I'm going to be looking into possibly reading and doing something with that later on. It seemed weird when they went to Carol's house and Nancy was there with the cop. They checked in, there was nobody there. And then she figures out, or she gets that email from the killer and drives off. She doesn't ask the cop to come with her at all. That seems like a bad move. I couldn't quite figure out the logic there, other than I'm going to do it myself. Kind of started to go along with my suicidal thoughts on Nancy with that one as well. I didn't understand. She took her beanie off, her breaking and entering beanie, as soon as her friends got there. There's got to be something, like a chart of where she uses the beanie, where she does it, why she takes it on, why she takes it off. We're gonna find something with this. Wasn't exactly pro detective skills, where she looks at the dust in the floor and she's like, oh, something was dragged and it's a size 7.5 foot. Like, yeah, I think that George's little sister who got kidnapped probably could have figured that out. So then it was very nice when it was, oh yeah, this is way too obvious. And then that wasn't actually the case. I liked that. Loving that George's crowbar is a reoccurring thing. Very Half-Life feeling. So that was great. With the poison gas, once Nancy got in there and the gas started leaking in, why did she make no effort to make a face mask? Maybe it's because I'm hyper aware of face masks right now in our current state of the world, but it seems so obvious to just like pull something over your nose, rip some fabric off of your skirt or pants or whatever and tie it over your nose and mouth. I know it wouldn't have done a lot, but it could have at least slowed things down, surely. And then I liked that Nick was the level-headed one who, you know, ran off to try and figure things out instead of forcing the door like George's instinct was. Ace's dad, again, pretty chill, but I liked that whole thing where the cords led Ace to the computer. He's got the hacker thing going on, so then he was able to undo the locks. It always seems like it's the science teacher, right? I mean, that was the deal with Breaking Bad, too. We got to pay our science teachers more because they're becoming a trope, and I'm afraid that it's inspired by real life here somewhere. Like, surely somebody sitting in the writer's room was like, oh yeah, and then I was pretty sure that my science teacher was kidnapping people. Like, those don't feel too far off. We gotta fix that. Luckily, I've never had that situation. And then Nick made a mask. Again, the level-headed one. I think he's starting to become my favorite. And then obviously seemed to be kind of a follow the light situation. So where Nancy started to die, she saw Dead Lucy. This is where I legit jumped. When Dead Lucy scared Nancy back to life, I like did one of the type of things watching this by myself in my fully lit living room. So that was kind of funny. And then I loved the line when Ace's dad told him that he was proud of him. And Ace was like, oh no, I'm sorry. What was that? Can you say that one more time? And his dad said, only suckers repeat themselves. I feel like I want to use that somewhere else, somehow, somewhere. And then, again, Bess keeps getting left behind. I thought, you know, really well-rounded characters. Again, we saw their strengths come through as they were trying to rescue Nancy. Their backstories play into their strengths. I think it really well informs how they interact with each other. And then they did that whole chummy, like, oh no, friends stick together at the end. And I thought that was really nice. A little, Saturday morning, very special episode of 80s TV shows, but I'll take it. I think with the source material, it works in this case. Then the only other thing that kind of came up with this was my question whether or not Lucy is preying on Nancy's rift with her dad. So we found out that Lucy had been trapped in one of those glass ghost catchers that Nancy had put up around her house. But then at the very end of the episode, Nancy is, I can't quite remember what she was working on, but she decided to take the call from her dad. And as soon as she accepted that, Lucy got pulled away and the door slammed shut. So that kind of leads me to believe that either Nancy's getting further away from solving Lucy's mystery death, I don't know, whatever you call it, every time she kind of positively interacts with her dad or trusts that he didn't do it. Or Lucy feels like Nancy's attention is being split and she's not going to be able to focus as much on solving that murder. So that's all I got. I finally got around to making this video after way too many days. So I've been not letting myself watch the next episode until I finish filming this. So all of the reactions are genuine without knowing what actually comes next. So with that, toodaloo, Nancy Drew. Till next time.